Hey, can I tell you about my gas problem? Gas burning stovetops. There's a lot of problems with them. I mean, there's a lot of good things about them too, but you always hear about the good things. The biggest good thing is that they are responsive, meaning you ignite them and they're instantly hot. You throttle them down, they instantly cool off. At its core, it's a very simple mechanism. It's a pipe. On one end of the pipe, there is a highly combustible and relatively clean burning hydrocarbon, and on the other end of the pipe, there is a fire. And then midway through the pipe, there's a valve that opens and closes it. The more you open the valve, the more fuel pours into the fire. And it's a literal fire right here in your home. So it's romantic in that way. The original cooking over an open fire right here in your home. I get it. I was excited when I moved into this house, and this house came with a really nice, really expensive gas-burning stovetop. I hadn't had a gas stovetop since this really sketch apartment that I lived in briefly in college. I was excited to try it. Here in the United States, electric ranges are twice as common as gas ranges, according to these estimates from the federal government. So, naturally, I've cooked on way more electric ranges in my time. I've been lucky enough to cook on some good ones, and the good electric ranges are simply way more powerful. When we first moved in here, both my wife and I noticed that it was taking a lot longer to bring pots of water up to a boil, usually for pasta. How can this be when gas is more responsive? With electric, you turn it on and it does not get hot instantly. It takes a few minutes to get up to heat. With gas, you just turn it on and instantly it flames on. So how could it be that the water was taking longer to boil? Because even though the heat comes on immediately, there is less of it. Like over here, I'm going to start a slow pour. Several seconds later, I'll start a faster pour. That cup is going to fill up way faster than the other one, even though the stove signified on the left there got off to a later start. Gas stove is on the right. When Consumer Reports reviewed 171 current model ranges, the electric ones clearly beat out the gas ones on the boil test. Not every single model, but in aggregate, electric simply gets you more heat. Why is gas weaker? Well, technically, it might not be. Depends on the model, of course, but it might just be an issue of efficiency. Gas stoves are, generally, far less efficient at actually transferring their heat into your food. And here's proof. This is a real thermal imaging camera, not one of those fake infrared camera app filters that just simulates a thermal image. You're seeing real heat. Look at the heat billowing up around the pot and escaping out into the kitchen. I'm not stacking the deck here. I've got this small pot on my smallest gas ring. The ring and the pot are well matched. Now let's boil some water on an electric burner and see? The pot is hot, but there aren't the same plumes of heat swirling up around it and away. It's just the nature of the beast that with a gas stovetop, the pan has to be suspended up and away from the actual heat source, and the gap in between the heat source and the pan is a place where heat can just get away. By way of example, look at all the heat that's getting wasted on heating up the iron grate that the pot is sitting on. See how hot those bars are? That's all wasted energy. When you're thinking about buying a stove and you're looking at the thermal output ratings that the manufacturer lists, you got to think about what they're actually telling you. Here in the United States, they would be sold by BTUs per hour, which is British thermal units, how much BTUs it can put out in an hour. Well, what are they telling you? Are they telling you the heat that the stove can produce in an hour? Or are they telling you the heat that actually makes it into your pot over the course of that same hour? Only one of those numbers actually matters, right? And in their defense, I don't think they could actually tell you the number that matters because it depends on the pot, how much heat is actually going to make it into the pot. Now, there are some new high-tech gas ring configurations that are designed to address this problem by focusing the fire up a central column. That's awesome if you can get one of those. Though keep in mind that like 1 billion or more people actually depend on the heat leakage that they get from a traditional gas ring like this. I'm talking about the 1 billion or 2 people who cook primarily in woks. You cook in a wok, you actually want the heat to wrap up and around the outer cone of the pan. That's why they make these electric burners that woks can actually nest inside. If you mainly cook in a wok, this problem of heat leakage might not even be a problem. Remember, this video isn't about your gas problem, it's about my gas problem. And my problem is it takes way longer for big pots of water to come up to a boil on here. It takes longer for me to reduce down sauces and glazes. Devotees know I'm a glaze man all day long. Another problem is that the heat leakage tends to overheat things that are outside the pan. Like this thermometer. On an electric stove, you could just leave a thermometer hanging on the side of the pan like that, even if the display is not heat safe. But on the gas stove, I'm very close to melting the plastic on that. The chicken came out good anyway. Of course it did. It's from the sponsor of this video, HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. Let me tell you about them for a sec. You want to talk about efficiency? HelloFresh is all about it. The carbon footprint of a meal in a box like this is actually lower than a similar meal cooked from groceries because they only send you what you need. It virtually eliminates food waste. Look at all these adorable little packets of things for my sauce. I'm not buying jars of things I'm going to have to stow in my cupboard somewhere and figure out how to use. Plus, I can cook this in less time than it takes me to grocery shop. The average grocery trip is 41 minutes. I mean, I still cook from groceries too, obviously, but it's awesome to have HelloFresh take care of me instead a few days a week. Plus, they taste really good. It's fall and these recent recipes have been autumnal AF. This box is from the Calorie Smart plan, but you can check out all the other plans at HelloFresh.com. Use code AdamRagusia14 to get 14 free meals, plus free shipping. Use my link and code in the description to get 14 free meals. Thank you, HelloFresh. So yeah, my other gas problems. Stuff around the pot tends to get way too hot. Not just thermometers, but spoons. I used to love perching my stirring spoon on the side of the pan. I can't always do that on my gas stove. Depending on the shape of the pot and all that, the spoon can literally burn or burn me when I go to pick it up. That's just a minor inconvenience. The bigger problem I get is the scorching that I get around the inside rim of my pans. Like you can see evidence of this right there. The walls of my pans tend to get so hot on this stove, and sauces especially have a tendency to burn up there on the rim. Like this is a custard that I was working on. I could not stop it from burning on the side of the pot. And now I understand why so many people cook custards over double boilers, which is a thing I almost never had to do on my electric stove. That burning happened even though I had my gas heat all the way down, as low as possible. And that's another gas problem. All the way down is often not low enough. You can only close off the valve so tight before there's a risk that your flame goes out. If the flame goes out, you'll end up pouring uncombusted gas into your kitchen, and that would be bad. So these burners are designed to never let you throttle them down so low that there's a risk of the flame going out. Unless you have a special warming burner with just a few little holes in it, low heat on a gas stove is never gonna be that low. Like look at this giant pot. That's on my smallest burner turned all the way down, and it's still simmering that sauce way too aggressively. I had to babysit that pot way more than I wanted to make sure that the sauce didn't stick to the bottom and burn. My old electric burners, I could get way lower. And here I do need to clear up a definition of electric. Here in the US, most electric burners are just a coil of wire. It resists the current that you flow through it and it gets red hot. It's basically an incandescent light bulb that you put a pan on. Whether that coil is out in the open or underneath a smooth ceramic top, it's the same basic technology. This is my old glass top stove and it's just a wire coil under there. As I have been fortunate enough to reach a global audience via this platform, I have found anecdotally that a lot of people in Europe and some other places tend to assume that glass top equals induction. And that's not true. Here in the US, we have lots of resistance coil stoves that are under glass tops as well. Induction is a totally different heating technology that also is usually under a glass top, and it's a different thing. It's a cool thing. I've got a whole video about induction that is linked in the description. Basically, it's making heat with magnets. This little burner I have here is an induction burner, and I'm pretty confident that induction is the future. Resistance coil stoves, even if you get them really low or really high, they have to cycle on and off to maintain their temperature, which gives you peaks and valleys in your heat. Plus, resistance stoves really are unresponsive. If your pan gets too hot, you can't just turn the heat down. There's going to be a lag during which the heat is still really, really hot on that burner, and things in your pot could burn. So in an emergency like that, you have to move the pan off the burner, which is an easy thing to do in a domestic context, since I'm rarely cooking on every part of my stove at the same time, but I can understand why that would be a pain in a professional kitchen. Tons of professional kitchens around the world, though, are switching to induction because the heating is way more steady, the temperature controls are way more responsive, and the stoves are much more energy efficient than gas. Or are they? And this is a really complicated topic now. I'm not talking about heat transfer efficiency from the stove to the pot. I'm talking about energy efficiency of the whole system. By some estimates, gas is far more efficient in that respect, in part because you lose less energy in transmission with gas. Nonetheless, people concerned about the environment and climate change are generally allied against gas stoves. Depending on where you live and how your power is generated, a gas stove really may have a lower carbon footprint, but it is inherently a carbon footprint. You are burning a non-renewable hydrocarbon here, and it is a hydrocarbon the extraction and use of which generates greenhouse gases. The electricity coming out of your wall socket, well, that might be coming from a fossil fuel now too, but it might not be doing that forever, right? Like they could get it from someplace else in the future. So surely this is one reason why environmental groups have funded research into the various problems with gas stoves, including their health hazards. This is a major literature review released in 2020 by a coalition of such groups. And here the research is pretty clear. Gas stoves are far more likely than electric to bring potentially dangerous gases into your home. For example, nitrogen dioxide, NO2. Research has shown that the kind of NO2 concentrations you can get from gas cooking, these are associated with asthma and developmental problems in kids. And nitrogen oxides smell like absolutely nothing, so you wouldn't know you were breathing them. That rotten egg smell when you first turn on the burner, that's an additive designed to tip you off if there's combustible gas in the room. A fiery explosion is certainly a greater acute health risk, but odorless hazards like nitrogen oxides could be a significant chronic health risk, especially in little kids and people with breathing problems. When I first moved into this house, it took me embarrassingly long to discover this retractable little ventilation thing here. It's a downdraft because this is an island cooktop. Works pretty good, and so I've tried to get in the habit of turning it on and using it even when I'm not making a lot of smoke and stink. When it's just normal cooking, I try to use it anyway. And I try to cook on the back burners closer to the vent so the stuff is more likely to go down the vent, and I'm not hanging over it as directly and breathing in the gases. Though honestly, I'm more worried about my kids in this respect. I mean, please do not go out and replace a perfectly good gas stove because you're worried about its carbon footprint. I'm pretty sure wasting it and buying a new one would be way worse for the environment. But I can tell you right now, when this old girl peters out, I'm going induction. At the very least, I think glass tops are way easier than gas to clean, but you do you.